Yes, I can help with Joshua Selman sermons. Apostle Joshua Selman is a Nigerian Christian minister, teacher, and founder of Koinonia. His sermons are widely known for their depth, strong scriptural foundations, and emphasis on spiritual growth, intimacy with God, destiny, leadership, and the ministry of the Holy Spirit. Prayer is alignment because it brings the believer into a state where the heart, mind, and spirit synchronize with the will and wisdom of God. When a person wakes up in the morning, they face a world filled with noise, pressure, demands, and distractions. Without alignment, the soul becomes scattered, pulled in different directions by emotions, responsibilities, and external influences. But prayer acts as the divine compass that recalibrates the inner man. It quiets the storms within and redirects the believer toward God's purpose. Alignment is more than the act of speaking words. It is the intentional positioning of the heart so that God can flow through it unrestricted. When you begin your day with prayer, you acknowledge that your strength is not enough. You confess that your wisdom can fail, your plans can collapse, and your emotions can mislead you. But alignment through prayer brings the superior reality of heaven into your earthly affairs. It draws you out of the limitations of self and ushers you into the limitless provisions of the Spirit. Many people move through life reacting to events, but aligned people move through life responding to God. They don't just make decisions. They receive instructions. They don't just hope for clarity. They walk in it because alignment opens the channels of divine guidance. In spiritual alignment, your desires begin to mirror God's desires. Your priorities shift. Your fears weaken. Your confidence rises because you now function from a place of understanding instead of uncertainty. Prayer aligns your mind by purifying your thoughts. It aligns your emotions by stabilizing your heart. It aligns your spirit by strengthening your inner man. When a man is aligned, his discernment heightens. What others call coincidence, he sees as divine orchestration. What others fear, he confronts with calmness because he knows he is not standing alone. Alignment also brings order. A life without alignment becomes chaotic, full of unnecessary battles and avoidable mistakes. But prayer filters your focus, helping you identify what truly matters. It separates distractions from assignments. It makes you sensitive to opportunities and alert to danger. Many breakthroughs are not missing. They are simply invisible to the misaligned. But prayer lifts the fog so that you can see with clarity what God has already positioned around you. A person who begins the day without alignment often carries the weight of the previous day. Offenses, anxieties, disappointments, regrets. These become burdens that drain energy and weaken spiritual sensitivity. But prayer offloads these weights at the feet of God, allowing you to step into the daylight, free and strengthened. Alignment ensures that you don't just start the day physically awake, but spiritually awake. The world is full of awake bodies, but sleeping spirits. Prayer awakens the spirit so you can perceive, interpret, and respond to life correctly. When you are aligned, your steps are ordered because God begins to influence your decisions. Sometimes through gentle impressions, sometimes through scriptures, and sometimes through divine peace. You may not hear a loud voice, but alignment makes your spirit receptive enough to sense when God is leading you. And when God leads, he leads into peace, into productivity, into wisdom, into progress. Alignment through prayer prepares you for the unseen. It is God's way of equipping you for conversations you didn't expect, opportunities you didn't plan for, and challenges you didn't foresee. Prayer may not always change what is ahead of you, but it will always change what is within you, making you strong, alert, wise, and ready. In alignment, you are no longer moving randomly, you are moving purposefully, accurately, and confidently. This is why beginning your day with prayer is not optional for a believer who desires victory. Prayer is the doorway through which alignment flows, and alignment is the atmosphere in which destiny flourishes. Every day carries its own battles, demands, and expectations, and stepping into a new day with yesterday's strength is one of the greatest disadvantages a believer can embrace. Life is structured in cycles, and each cycle comes with its own spiritual, mental, and emotional requirements. What sustained you yesterday may not be sufficient for today, because each day has a fresh set of challenges that require fresh grace. A believer who understands this approaches every morning with humility, recognizing that human strength has limits and that divine empowerment must be renewed daily. Each day opens like a new chapter in a book. New events, new interactions, new responsibilities, new decisions, and sometimes unexpected confrontations. If a person wakes up and assumes that the battles of today will be solved by the leftovers of yesterday's strength, they quickly discover that their inner resources are not enough. Fatigue, confusion, emotional pressure, and spiritual attacks are part of the daily journey of life. That is why prayer is essential in the morning. It is the point where the believer draws fresh strength, fresh clarity, and fresh direction for the tasks ahead. Imagine the human spirit as a lamp. No matter how brightly it shined yesterday, it cannot remain lit without new oil. Prayer is the oil of the Spirit. Yesterday's oil is not enough for today's illumination. Each day brings new darkness to confront, new temptations to resist, new opportunities to discern, and new decisions to make. Without fresh empowerment, a person may move through the day overwhelmed, drained, or misaligned. Many people stumble, not because they lack ability, but because they lack renewal. Every morning, life presents you with invisible battles. Battles of the mind, battles of relationships, battles of identity, battles of destiny. These cannot be confronted with mere physical energy or intellectual capacity. Spiritual battles require spiritual preparedness. When a believer wakes up and begins the day without allowing God to fortify the inner man, they unknowingly enter a battlefield unarmed. Prayer is not just communion, it is fortification. It clothes you with strength, heightens your sensitivity, and surrounds you with divine defense. Even the opportunities of a new day require new strength. Sometimes the challenge is not an attack from the enemy, but the weight of the assignments God has entrusted to you. Daily responsibilities, family work, ministry, relationships, decisions require wisdom and patience. Without fresh strength, even blessings can feel like burdens. But when you receive renewal in the morning, what overwhelms others becomes manageable for you. What discourages others becomes a platform for testimony, because you are operating from a place of divine empowerment. Life also has a way of demanding emotional resilience. People may disappoint you. Circumstances may stretch you. Unexpected news may trouble you. Without fresh emotional strength, small irritations can become major frustrations, and minor obstacles can feel like mountains. But when you start the day with prayer, the Spirit stabilizes your emotions. Peace becomes your foundation. Joy becomes your strength. You walk through the day with calmness, handling each challenge with grace. Moreover, each day carries its own divine appointments. People you are meant to meet, opportunities you are meant to seize, decisions you are meant to make. You need fresh clarity to recognize these moments. A mind that is tired or spiritually dull cannot perceive the subtle movements of God. But through prayer, the eyes of your understanding open. You become sensitive to God's leading, aware of His promptings, and ready to move when he speaks. This is why relying on yesterday's strength is dangerous. Life is dynamic. Situations shift, seasons change, challenges evolve. And the believer must evolve with them. Through the daily pursuit of God, every new day demands a new supply of grace, and prayer is the channel through which that supply flows. When you begin your day by drawing from God, you enter the world refreshed, empowered, and equipped. You do not simply survive the day, you conquer it. Prayer opens the heavens because it creates a spiritual atmosphere where divine realities can flow freely into the life of the believer. When a person begins their day with prayer, they are not merely speaking into the air, they are initiating a supernatural exchange between earth and heaven. Prayer is the bridge that connects the human realm to the divine. It is the moment when a mortal man invites the immortal God to step into his affairs. When the heavens open over a person, everything changes, clarity comes, peace floods in, direction becomes accessible, and divine help becomes active. But this opening does not happen randomly. It happens when a man prays. Heaven represents the dimension of God's presence, wisdom, and power. When the heavens are closed, a person may move through the day confused, weary, or frustrated, even if they have talent, knowledge, or resources. Closed heavens produce dryness, spiritual dryness, emotional dryness, and mental dryness. But prayer acts as the master key that unlocks the flow of divine resources. When you pray, you are in essence telling God, let your will find expression in my life today. And God honors that invitation by releasing light, strength, and direction that you could never access through human ability alone. When the heavens open, the first thing that descends is light. Light means understanding, revelation, and clarity. Many people are not failing because they lack effort, but because they lack light. They move through the day guessing, doubting, and struggling because they cannot see what God is doing or where He is directing them. But prayer opens the heavens and releases light, making the path of the believer clear. Decisions become easier because the voice of God becomes clearer. Confusion dissolves because divine wisdom begins to guide your steps. Another blessing that flows from open heavens is peace. Peace is the atmosphere in which divine guidance operates. When your heart is troubled, it becomes difficult to discern God's voice. But prayer quiets the noise of the soul and releases the kind of peace that stabilizes you. This peace does not come from perfect circumstances. It comes from the assurance that God is actively involved in your journey. A day started without prayer often feels chaotic, but a day started under open heavens is marked by calmness and order. Open heavens also release favor. Favor is the divine influence that makes things work for you in ways you cannot explain. It is God touching the hearts of people to support, help, or bless you. Many breakthroughs do not happen because people are unwilling, but because heaven has not yet moved on their hearts. When you pray, God begins to influence the environment, the circumstances, and even the people connected to your destiny. Suddenly, doors open, opportunities appear, people remember you, solutions emerge. This is not coincidence. It is evidence of open heavens. When the heavens open, angelic activity increases as well. Angels are ministering spirits assigned to help believers, but their operations intensify when prayer is offered. Through prayer, angels are dispatched to protect, guide, and assist you. Many unseen battles are won simply because a believer began their morning by inviting heaven to take charge. Furthermore, open heavens release divine strength. There are days when your body is weak, your emotions are fragile, or your mind is overwhelmed. But prayer draws strength from God's unlimited supply. Suddenly, you find yourself able to endure, to think clearly, to work effectively, and to remain joyful. This supernatural strength is evidence that heaven has responded to your call. Ultimately, prayer opens the heavens because it aligns your spirit with God's agenda. When the heavens are open, you are not just moving through the day. You are moving under grace, under direction, and under divine empowerment. Everything becomes different because you are no longer relying on human effort alone. Prayer makes your day a partnership with God. And when God partners with a man, impossibilities become opportunities, challenges become testimonies, and ordinary days become supernatural. Destinies do not advance by chance. They advance by intentional spiritual investment. Many people hope that one day their lives will suddenly change, that success will appear effortlessly, or that the future will unfold beautifully without any deliberate participation. But destiny does not respond to hope alone. It responds to investment. Prayer, obedience, discipline, sacrifice, and consistency are spiritual currencies that shape the path of greatness. Nothing rises on its own. Even the promises of God require human cooperation for manifestation. When a believer understands this, they stop living casually and start living intentionally. Every destiny contains potential, but potential is not equal to manifestation. A seed may carry the possibility of a great tree, but unless it is planted, watered, protected, and nurtured, it will remain only a possibility. Many people carry powerful prophecies, talents, and dreams, yet their lives remain stagnant because they have not invested spiritually in what God placed within them. Destiny is like raw material. It requires processing. It requires shaping, preparing, and building. Prayer is one of the primary tools that refines destiny. It opens the heart to instruction, strengthens the will to obey, and releases grace for transformation. Without prayer, a person may know where they want to go, but lack the capacity to get there. Intentional spiritual investment also involves guarding your atmosphere. Destiny grows in the right environment. A life surrounded by negativity, laziness, distraction, or compromise cannot rise into greatness. Your atmosphere determines your speed. Greatness demands focus, purity, and spiritual sensitivity. When a believer invests time in worship, meditation, and the word, they create an environment where destiny can flourish. This environment becomes a greenhouse that protects purpose from the cold winds of doubt, fear, and misdirection. Another part of spiritual investment is discipline. No one arrives at greatness by default. Every great destiny is built on patterns, patterns of prayer, patterns of study, patterns of excellence, patterns of diligence. The future belongs to those who are consistent. Even the anointing operates best in disciplined vessels. When a person chooses to invest daily in becoming better, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, they make themselves trustworthy carriers of God's assignment. God does not entrust significant destinies to careless people. Intentionality proves reliability. Sacrifice is another element of spiritual investment. There are seasons when advancing destiny requires letting go of comfort, convenience, or temporary pleasure. Destiny demands a price. Whether it is waking up earlier to pray, giving when it hurts, studying when tired, or saying no to distractions, every sacrifice becomes a seed in the soil of your future. Nothing sacrificed in the name of destiny is ever wasted. The law of honor ensures that what you give up today becomes an advantage tomorrow. Obedience is also a critical investment. When God gives an instruction, whether small or enormous, it becomes a doorway to new dimensions. Many destinies are delayed not because the devil is powerful, but because obedience is lacking. One act of obedience can shift a person from obscurity to relevance. Every miracle, breakthrough, or promotion is tied to an instruction. When a believer lives with open ears and a willing heart, doors begin to open that others only dream of. Finally, spiritual investment involves aligning with the right relationships. Destiny is too heavy to be carried alone. God uses people to accelerate you, shape you, and prepare you. Being connected to wisdom-filled, vision-driven, spiritually awake individuals multiplies your progress. Likewise, the wrong relationships can sabotage years of growth. Intentionality means choosing associations that nourish destiny, not drain it. In the end, a life of greatness is never accidental. It is built through continuous, deliberate, and purposeful investment. When a believer commits to spiritual growth, to prayer, to discipline, to obedience, and to the right voices, destiny begins to unfold naturally. What others call luck is actually the harvest of years of intentional investment. Destiny always rewards those who take it seriously. Prayer summons help and releases angelic activity because it activates the unseen support system God has already provided for every believer. Life is deeply spiritual, and many of the challenges people face daily are not simply physical or emotional. They have spiritual roots and spiritual implications. No matter how intelligent, strong, or experienced you are, there are dimensions of life where human ability is insufficient. This is why God, in His wisdom, designed a system of supernatural assistance. But that assistance does not operate automatically. It responds to the voice of prayer. When you pray, you create a legal pathway for heaven's resources to intervene in your earthly affairs. There are battles you will never see with your physical eyes. Battles fought in the realm of the spirit long before they manifest in the natural. Prayer deploys angels into those unseen territories to fight, to guard, to block danger, and to reorganize things in your favor. Angels are not mythical beings. They are divine messengers and warriors assigned to help those who belong to God. But their assignment becomes activated when prayer rises. Prayer is like a spiritual summons, a signal that invites angelic forces to engage on your behalf. When you step into a new day, you do not know what the day carries. You don't know who is planning against you, what traps have been set, what opportunities need alignment, or what attacks the enemy has whispered in the dark hours. But heaven knows. Prayer becomes the communication line through which God dispatches help. In prayer, you don't only talk to God, you also authorize heaven to shield you, guide you, and accompany you. As you pray, unseen battles are won. Attacks that should have reached you are intercepted. Negative outcomes are reversed. What the enemy intended for harm is neutralized before it manifests. There are people you must meet, places you must avoid, and decisions you must make for your destiny to advance. Sometimes the help you need comes through people. Angels can influence individuals to remember you, support you, recommend you, or show you kindness. What seems like a coincidence is often heaven's orchestration. Someone suddenly calls you with good news, an unexpected door opens, or a problem resolves itself without effort. These are not accidents. These are signs that prayer has summoned help and activated divine intervention. Angelic activity also provides protection. Many spiritual attacks are subtle. They come as accidents, sudden sicknesses, emotional breakdowns, or unexpected setbacks. Without divine protection, a person can walk straight into danger without realizing it. But when you pray, angels are assigned like spiritual bodyguards. They go ahead of you, clearing the way. They surround you, preventing harm. They push back the forces of darkness and shield your environment from evil. What should have destroyed you simply passes over you, not because you were lucky, but because heaven was actively defending you. Beyond protection, angels also bring guidance. God can use angels to whisper direction, to align events, or to create situations that lead you where you need to be. You may feel a sudden burden to delay your journey, avoid a meeting, or take a different route. These gentle promptings are sometimes angelic influences preventing disaster or positioning you for divine appointments. Prayer also summons help by strengthening the inner man. Not all help is external. Sometimes the help you need is courage, peace, resilience, or clarity. Angels can minister strength to your spirit, just as they strengthened Jesus in Gethsemane. You rise from prayer feeling lighter, stronger, and more confident. Not because the situation changed yet, but because divine support has flooded your heart. In essence, prayer is the gateway to divine reinforcement. When you pray, you are not praying alone. Heaven responds. Angels move. Battles shift. Destiny aligns. Prayer calls for help, and help comes not from the earth, not from people, not from luck, but from God's supernatural army assigned to ensure that your journey is preserved and your purpose fulfilled. Starting your day with prayer enforces God's will because it establishes divine authority over the events, decisions, and encounters that will unfold throughout the day. Life is not neutral. Every day is a battleground of influences. Your own desires, the expectations of others, the pressures of circumstances, and the manipulations of the enemy. Without prayer, you move through the day reacting to whatever comes your way. But when you pray, you shift from reaction to regulation. Prayer becomes the spiritual system that enforces heaven's agenda and silences every contrary influence. It is the believer's way of declaring, let only what God has ordained find expression in my life today. God's will is perfect, but it must be enforced. Even though God desires peace for you, progress for you, clarity for you, and preservation for you, the enemy constantly attempts to interfere. This is why prayer is not just communication, it is enforcement. It is the act of taking what God has declared and stamping it upon your day. Prayer is the believer's decree that today will not be governed by fear, confusion, chaos, or manipulation, but by the wisdom and purpose of God. When you begin the day with prayer, you establish spiritual order. Things that were meant to go wrong begin to realign. Invisible traps lose their power. The confusion the enemy designed becomes clarity. The delays that were programmed become acceleration. The prayers you pray in the morning go ahead of you like spiritual legislation, reshaping atmospheres and influencing outcomes. You are not merely walking through a day, you are walking through a day that has been spiritually prepared. Prayer enforces God's will by making your spirit sensitive to His voice. Many times, the will of God is not revealed in loud, obvious moments. It is revealed in gentle impressions, sudden caution, supernatural peace, or unexpected boldness. A heart that has prayed becomes tuned to these signals. Without prayer, you may walk past warnings, overlook opportunities, or ignore divine instructions. But when you pray, you create a spiritual environment where the will of God becomes discernible. Your decisions become accurate because they are guided, not guessed. Enforcing God's will also means resisting anything that does not come from Him. Sometimes the battles you face in a day are not coincidences. They are spiritual attempts to distract, discourage, or disrupt you. Without prayer, you may accept these attacks as normal experiences. But when you pray in the morning, you draw a line in the sand. You resist what is not from God and you permit what is. Prayer becomes the filter that allows blessings to enter and blocks adversity from taking advantage of you. Additionally, prayer releases God's favor, which is a major component of His will. Favor positions you where you need to be. It connects you with the right people. It gives you access to what others strive for. It softens the hearts of those who must help you. Favor is not random. It is activated when heaven is invited to take control. When you enforce God's will through prayer, you make room for favor to accompany you throughout the day. Prayer also enforces strength for what God wants you to accomplish. Some days are heavy. Some tasks are demanding. Some responsibilities stretch your mind and emotions. Without divine strength, even God's assignments can feel overwhelming. But prayer deposits strength into your spirit. It fortifies you for your journey so that you complete what God desires without breaking under pressure. The will of God is not just about what you do, but about having the strength, peace, and joy to do it well. Ultimately, beginning your day with prayer ensures that you walk under the covering of God, not the influence of circumstances. It transforms an ordinary day into a divinely supervised day. You become aware, guided, protected, and empowered because the will of heaven has been activated. Prayer is the believer's authority, and when you use it, the day becomes a canvas on which God paints his intentions. Through prayer, you allow nothing to happen by chance. You allow God's will to govern every step. A prayed up believer walks in clarity, boldness, and productivity because prayer enhances spiritual awareness and strengthens the inner man to function with precision throughout the day. When a person begins their morning in communion with God, something shifts internally. Confusion loses its grip, fear loses its voice, and weakness loses its influence. Prayer sharpens the heart, steadies the emotions, and awakens the spirit. Instead of guessing their way through the day, a prayed up person moves with purpose and insight, recognizing what to embrace, what to avoid, and how to respond to every situation. Prayer becomes the lens through which they interpret life, and that lens gives clarity. Clarity is essential because life is filled with distractions and decisions. Many people wake up and step straight into noise, messages, conversations, demands, responsibilities. And in the midst of that noise, it's easy to lose direction. But prayer creates inner stillness. It filters out distractions. It aligns your thoughts with the thoughts of God. Problems that looked overwhelming suddenly appear manageable. Decisions that felt complicated become simple. Directions that were blurry suddenly become clear. Clarity is the gift of a heart that has spent time with God in the morning. With clarity comes boldness. Boldness is not arrogance. It is confidence rooted in divine assurance. When a person has prayed, fear cannot dominate their mind. Prayer reminds them that they are not facing the day alone. It positions them under God's covering and activates the consciousness that heaven backs them. A prayed up believer steps into challenges with the confidence that God is with them, guiding them, strengthening them, and fighting for them. Opportunities no longer intimidate them, and obstacles no longer paralyze them. They face conversations with courage. They take initiatives they once avoided. They walk into meetings, responsibilities, and assignments with the strength of one who knows they are supported by the Almighty. Boldness also allows a person to make decisions without hesitation. Many people delay progress because they are afraid to take steps, afraid to fail, or afraid to be misunderstood. But a heart strengthened by prayer is free from such fear. Prayer enlarges the spirit, giving you the confidence to act according to God's leading. It removes timidity and replaces it with the courage to pursue purpose, confront challenges, and remain stable even when pressure rises. From clarity and boldness flows productivity. Productivity is not simply working hard, it is working accurately. It is the ability to focus on what matters most and avoid what drains time and energy. When a person begins the day in prayer, their mind becomes organized. Priorities become obvious. The Holy Spirit highlights what is important and exposes what is unnecessary. Tasks that once felt scattered become structured. Ideas begin to flow. Solutions come faster. Creativity awakens. A prayed up person gets more done, not because they are stronger, but because they are spiritually positioned. Prayer also fuels productivity by stabilizing emotions. It's difficult to stay productive when the heart is overwhelmed, anxious, or discouraged. But prayer deposits peace into the soul. It calms internal storms. It provides strength to endure pressure and patience to deal with people. One moment in God's presence can correct the emotional imbalance that would have sabotaged the entire day. When the heart is calm, the mind becomes sharper and the hands become more effective. Furthermore, a prayed up believer becomes sensitive to timing. Productivity is not just about doing the right thing, but doing it at the right moment. Prayer trains the spirit to sense divine timing, to know when to speak, when to move, when to wait, and when to act quickly. This sense of timing dramatically increases effectiveness and reduces unnecessary mistakes. Ultimately, a life soaked in morning prayer is a life that moves with supernatural ease. Challenges do not break you. Opportunities do not confuse you. Distractions do not derail you. You walk with clarity because your spirit is aligned, with boldness because your confidence is in God, and with productivity because your steps are ordered. Prayer transforms your entire day, making you effective, stable, and spiritually awake, ready for whatever comes your way.